Tearring Saga is technically not a Fire Emblem game, but it might as well be. It was made by Shozo Kaga, the lead developer of the first 5 Fire Emblem games, and it has way too many things in common with Fire Emblem to not be considered Fire Emblem. The main character is Runan, a sword-using lord character who seizes castles. He has a rapier that's effective against cavaliers and armor knights. He lost his homeland and he's trying to reclaim it from an empire that's being manipulated by a dark dragon magic cult. He brings a pair of cavaliers, a red one and a green one. It's a Fire Emblem game, I don't make the rules. It just doesn't have the Fire Emblem trademark because Kaga made it after parting ways with Intelligent Systems, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't play it if you like Fire Emblem. But I wouldn't say Tearring Saga is for everyone, so keep watching if you want to find out if it's for you. Tearring Saga doesn't just borrow general Fire Emblem tropes, it's a love letter to all the Fire Emblem games that came before it. Most of these tropes I mentioned feel like they're straight out of FE3, but you can find other distinct traits from other games as well. There's a secondary protagonist, Holmes, and the two of them spent most of the game apart from each other. This feels a lot like Fire Emblem Gaiden, although it's worth noting that at some points in the game, both armies can exchange characters, gold, and items in a way that feels more like Radiant Dawn. When it comes to the Juke Draw games, Genealogy and Thracia 776, you can find their influence in the skill system, as well as many of the interactions between characters. These relationships are intricate and sometimes secretive, and by playing around with which character goes where, you can unlock hidden backstories or even extra items and skills. And by secretive, I mean impossible to get without knowing beforehand. They make Stefan's recruitment look like foresights. These are instructions on how to recruit this super secret character. Most of them are a lot more simple, but this is just to give you an idea of how deep the rabbit hole goes. Those are Tearring Saga's 2 big strengths for me. Its adjacency to regular old school Fire Emblem and the extreme interwoven web that Kaga has spun between the gameplay, the characters, and the world they live in. Now, I want to give you some of my favorite examples, but I've got a dilemma here. One of the reasons I enjoyed this game so much is because I was playing semi-blind, meaning I got to experience everything spoiler-free, but I had a co-host, my friend Irissa, help me along the way to stop me from getting stuck. I would recommend that experience to anyone interested in playing this. But if I give you all my highlight reel, I think I will spoil some of those moments for you. So I'm going to save that for the end of the video for those who I cannot just convince of this game's greatness without spoiling some of it. Before we get there though, I think it's only fair if I address some of Tearring's weaknesses. The first one is obviously accessibility. This game was never released outside of Japan, so for most of us to even try it, we need to set up an emulated copy with a translation patch. I know for some people, emulation in and of itself is already a hurdle to overcome for various reasons, and the process for this game in particular is more complicated than it would be for some regular Fire Emblem titles. I had Irissa walk me through it, thank Yutona, and you can find their guide in the description. If you still need help with it, I'm sure there's a friendly Discord server out there somewhere, but this video isn't really the place for tech support. The second weakness is the sluggishness of the game. Remember when I said that TRS had nods to every other Fire Emblem game? Well, it took the UI from Fire Emblem 1 and then made it clunkier. Controlling this game is annoying and slow, with a lot of commands just taking a bit longer to process than what feels natural. Some of the lag I experienced might have been related to the translation patch, but for most of you, that is going to be how you want to experience the game anyway, so the fact that it might run better without or on original hardware doesn't really matter much. It's hard to do it justice through footage in this video, but anyone who's played this game or FE1 knows what I'm talking about. For some reason, it also often puts the wait command at the top of the menu, which results in accidental end turns just like FE5 had before the newer translation patches fixed that. In my opinion, this sluggishness is the biggest flaw the game has, and I can't make this any nicer than it is, except to say that it has not spoiled my enjoyment of the game. The third weakness is how text-heavy the game is. Tearring Saga does a lot of its character and world building through mechanics, but it also has a lot of good old portrait talks to portrait dialogue. A lot of it. Even for a Fire Emblem game, there are a ton of just straight up lore dumps. There's a lot of different plot threads, both from long ago and for current events, and at times I found that it was a little hard to follow with names being dropped left and right. I do feel the need to mention that I played this game once a week and I was recording and commentating throughout, so this might be less of a problem for you. but I personally found it easy to get lost on the many details. I do really appreciate that Kaga put a lot of thought into everyone and everything in this world, but this was definitely not the best or most fun way to deliver all that information to the player. Then I have some other minor gripes, like how every city in the game uses the same assets, or how I wish there were more map themes because the ones we have are bangers. But by the end of the game, they kind of get old because there's only like 5 of them. Now, if you've played Tearring Saga, you might expect me to complain about the map design, which at times is a little tedious, because yeah, there are a handful of stinkers in there that I did not enjoy playing, but most maps were nice and easy or challenging in an interesting way. A bad map in Tearring Saga definitely feels worse than in other games though, because of the aforementioned UI problems. And all these animations you've seen 100 times are a lot slower in Tearring Saga, and moving your units across a large map one by one takes longer when the game lags a little bit every step of the way. I also don't think that the secret events count as a drawback, because none of them are required to beat the game. There are so many of them that you're bound to hit something good even if you're playing completely blind, and I think that adds to replay value. That said, I will reiterate that your experience will be improved if you have someone give you some spoiler-free advice. Nothing too detailed, just something along the lines of, bring this character to this map. If you really don't like missing out on things, I would recommend that. Or if there's enough demand, maybe I can make a spoiler-free guide like I did for FE5. Alright, I'm done being a negative Nancy. Let's talk about what's good in this game. Now, you might expect me to discuss the bazillion broken weapons to mess around with. Well, that sounds like fun, so I think I will. Do you want a super strong wind tome that prevents the opponent from countering because you summon a freaking goddess? You got it. Do you want a brave 1-2 range spear with monster effectiveness? There you go. A sword with monster effectiveness that heals you every time you hit with it? Yep, they just give it to you. Do you like Dire Thunder? Alright, you get Dire Thunder, have fun killing things. Or maybe you would like a sword that halves damage taken, you know, like Julius's Lop-Tier tome in FE4? Yeah, you get that. In the 4th chapter. And it's monster effective, because of course it is. You also get Sunflame, a tome so hot it would make Arvis jealous. It has 1-3 range, 15 might, 100 hit, it raises your defense by 10 so you can enemy phase with it. Oh, and it's monster effective, because of course it is. Or maybe you prefer busted staves. We've got your classic warp and hammer and staves, but that's not all. There's an in-armor staff that gives a unit +7 defense for the rest of the map. Oh, whoops, post-production mecha here, I said +7 defense, but what I meant was it halves damage taken, just like Lop-Tier. This one you get in chapter 2. There's Ensorcel for +7 magic, there's Empower for +7 strength. 10. There are summoning staves that let you summon disposable monsters which you can use to distract enemies. And there's also one that gets rid of enemy monsters without even having to fight them. All of these are locked to fragile healer girls, of course. Oh, and there's a staff that saves the game in the middle of a battle. You probably expected me to talk about all those, and I guess I just did. But you know what my actual favorite part of Tearring Saga is? This flag. This flag is the best Fire Emblem feature that we never got on any other game. You know what this flag does? It marks a tile. So you can plan your turns without having to constantly check enemy ranges. It's genius. And you can put out multiple. You can use them for any purpose, but I like to use them to mark specific enemy ranges so I have a visual indicator of what tile I need my units to get onto or to avoid. Now you might ask, how is that better than the range checking feature in modern Fire Emblem? And the answer is, it's way more flexible because I can use it for any purpose, not just checking enemy ranges. I love this flag, and when 30 games from now Intelligent Systems realizes it should be in every Fire Emblem game, we Tearring Saga fans can proudly say, Kaga did it first. Now, if that flag and the crazy stuff I said before does not convince you to play Tearring Saga, then I guess I just need to talk about more crazy stuff. But this will involve spoilers. At this point, I've said just about anything I can without ruining some kind of twist for you, but some people apparently enjoy media more if they get spoiled, so here we go. I'm going to spoil crazy things this game does. If you're already convinced and you want to play this game spoiler free, pause the video, scroll down to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching, enjoy the rest of your day. But for those of you who actually want to get spoiled, either because they like that more or they're never going to play this game anyway and they want their mind changed, and of course the 5 or so Tearring Saga fans on the internet, this is for you. Here we go. You get Raffen, a crazy powerful paladin early on that's way stronger than everyone else. But they made sure he doesn't fall off, he keeps wrecking everything all the way until the end. Not only does he get Canter and Adept, most people get neither, but at one point they just put him on a fucking wyvern. Imagine if halfway through the game your Marcus just promotes into Har. That's basically Raffen. The crazy part is, Raffen is not even your strongest unit. There's this one chapter where you fight a bunch of weird cultists and one of the enemy knights has a portrait. You don't really see his face, just you know it's a non-generic portrait, so if you're dumb like me, you might almost kill him by accident. But you can actually talk to him and he will join you. And he's insane. Most units join with like 1 or 2 skills at most, but this guy, Zeke, he gets 5. And one of them is Paragon, which doubles his XP gain. And his growth rates are way higher than everyone else. He is a murder machine, he wrecks everything. Zeke is a masterpiece because everything about him feels too good to be true, and the way characters talk to him and about him reflect that. I kept telling my viewers, I don't trust this guy, he's from the evil cult. Why is he so much better than everyone else? But like, half the game goes by and this guy is still destroying enemies left and right, so I guess he really just redeemed himself. Oh, he left. And then you fight him, and he keeps all those level ups that you gave him. And when you defeat him, not only does he escape, but he takes one of your units with him because the cult wants to take her hostage. Damn. You get a sniper that refuses to kill human enemies, so instead whenever she would kill someone in combat, she leaves them at 1 HP, so that way you can train your weaker units. But she only cares about humans, she has no issues shooting down monsters. Except if you recruit this one other specific character and then you kill off that character, then she gets so angry she'll actually start killing people. You get a tank that shoots arrows, and if you want, you can use a weapon to turn that tank into a ballista. Except if you do that, you can no longer move him, and there's no way to turn him back other than by just finishing the map. You get 2 units that are in love, and when you're on a route split and you try to send them separate ways, one of them says, no, fuck you, I want to be with them, and they just go on the other route instead. You get a little girl, but at some point in the game she awakens her ancient dragon power and she turns into a dragon that destroys everything, and you get to keep using her and transform her into a dragon that destroys everything. You get this thief, except he's also a mimic like Zane from the Arcanea games, so he can turn into another unit. The story shows him being untrustworthy, and right after you recruit him, he bails on you with half of your gold. But in the very same chapter that he joins in, he can dig up a key to a secret shop where you can spend your gold before losing it. There is a sword fighter who joins with a sword that just straight up stops him from dying. If an enemy kills him while he has it equipped, he just comes back and you can do this over and over and over. The sword isn't bad either, like using it is not a drawback at all. But what happens if you unequip the sword and kill him on purpose? Well, he dies, and then at some point he suddenly reappears, and along with him you get this broken witch who can just teleport and attack enemies freely. You get it regardless, but killing the sword fighter rewards you by letting you recruit her earlier. Remember those frail healer girls I mentioned earlier? If you have one of them visit a certain house, she gets abducted and things get pretty dark for her. Like, actually very dark to the point where I felt like a content warning was warranted on the episode where this happened. But you can get her back later, except now she's a dancer and apparently she enjoys dancing, so if you, the player, want to have a dancer in this game, you'll have to get this poor girl abducted and enslaved on purpose. You know those Christmas Cavaliers I mentioned earlier? At one point, one of them leaves the party because of a girl he met, but then they end up captured by an enemy boss, and the boss imprisons the girl and forces the guy to fight you, but disguised as a generic enemy. So you have to constantly track which of the enemies is him, so you don't kill him by accident, while you go and rescue the girl so she can talk to him and recruit him. but you only get that entire sequence of events if you send your lord south into a desert after you fight a squadron of enemy wyverns that support each other and always stay in formation so they have plus 50 hit and avoid and crit. Bosses in general are something else in Tearring Saga. There's a boss that has a sword with 80% crits, and then you get that sword if you beat him the right way. There are several bosses with a gazillion avoid and skills that negate your damage. There's a wyvern boss that has all of this, plus a 1-to range spear that drains your HP and gives him immunity to effective damage and critical hits, and he moves. And one of the intended ways to beat him is have him fight unsympathetic NPCs until he breaks his spear. Kaga and his games are often accused of just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. I can see where that critique is coming from, because some of these concepts for weapons and units and maps all seem crazy. But in my opinion, when you play the game, you can definitely see that there's a clear intention here. There's an intention to use the gameplay to tell a story, and an intention of how the gameplay itself makes you feel. Even though you have a massive range of options available to you, the game creates tension by adding threatening enemies in thought-out formations. The game is fairly easy for the most part, but it does make you pull out all the stops every now and then to keep you on your toes. At several points, you see enemies you simply cannot defeat, like literal final boss level enemies. Tearring Saga is a beautiful, flawed game. I don't think everyone would enjoy playing it all the way through, but I do think everyone who enjoys Fire Emblem should try playing the first few maps to see if it's for them, especially if they enjoy some of the older games. And if it turns out you don't like it, I probably agree with your reasons why. Every game, and especially every Fire Emblem game, has big pros and cons, and our favorite is usually the one with the pros we care about the most and the cons we mind the least. I think every Fire Emblem game is good, and like I said at the beginning, this is a Fire Emblem game. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I hope my enthusiasm for Tearring Saga inspired you to try it out. Before I go, I'd like to take a moment to thank my Patrons on Patreon. It is thanks to them that I can pay editors to help me with making videos, or in this case, do passion projects like reviewing and playing Tearring Saga by myself. This game is not exactly the best way to draw in viewers or make ad revenue, but thanks to their monthly support, I'm able to spend time writing, recording and editing videos like myself, while still paying the bills. So thanks to all of you, it really helps a lot. Thanks to the A tier people scrolling by right now, and you guessed it, special thanks to S tier patrons Modi, Arkholt, Ben Dion, Boots42, D, Ice Lake, Carasso, Moo, Safi, Schmeep, Scott Mitchell, The Vala Agenda, Thick Molder, Vincent Cutie, Beku, Blue Caterade, and Jagan. Thanks for watching.